AI in imaging, pathology. Let me introduce the panelists sitting here with me. So we have Yu Li, Vice President of Global Business Development and Strategy at Align Technologies. We have Naveed Alipour, Co-founder and Managing Partner at Analytics Ventures. We have Kenneth Baker, Partner at Baker and Eastlag Ventures. And myself, my name is Guy Levine. I'm a Managing Partner at a company called Vision Elements, doing AI for a living, meaning that we provide R&D services, developing algorithms for a lot of companies. Also, one of the founders and currently the president of a company, startup company called Catworks, based out of Israel, developing real-time device for the cardiac cath lab. Raised over $50 million right now. So I'm bringing to the table the entrepreneurial and the scientific side. We have the business development of a public company. And we have two investors. So we should start with the discussion. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about
Sounds good. I think people probably know about Invisalign better than Align Technology. So we're the maker of clear aligners called Invisalign. It's a set of digital technologies that help you to move your teeth straightening without braces. Now, why is Align such a big user of AI technology and imaging? We apply AI across our value chain. We have dental is somewhat of a niche area of healthcare. But for those who are closer to the dental space will notice that dental is undergoing very profound digital transformation. It's a set of the hands-on craft is converting into digital technology. So Align has two pillars in our business. One is called an intraoral scanner. So we scan your entire teeth without using analog impressions. We can capture the 3D imaging. And we apply a lot of AI technology to stitch together the 3D representation of your teeth so we can apply diagnostics, treatment planning, and all sorts of wonderful things that we can do from a dental perspective. And our other pillar is Invisalign teeth straightening clear aligners. And we have treated over 7 million patients to date. So we have very rich data about your teeth. And we have millions of code. We automate treatment planning based on the rich data that we have and from the imaging data we have. So that's why I'm here. Very excited to talk to you about AI and imaging and pathology.
I'll go next. So my name is Naveed Alipour, co-founder and managing partner at Analytics Ventures. We are a San Diego-based venture capital fund. Our mandate from our LPs, our investors, is to operate under a venture studio model, similar to those of you that are from San Francisco, the Hive or Atomic.vc that's here. And so we focus on any industry that is applying AI machine learning to data or to images, that then by making a recommendation or prediction or forecast or detecting anomalies in the data sets or images that don't belong, one can increase revenues, decrease costs by bringing operational efficiencies, and in the healthcare sense, of course, the prolonged life, save life element. I'll talk about it a little more, but one of our companies, Metrics, for example, has FDA clearance for the best AI technology in detecting breast cancer and mammograms. So again, detecting anomalies in those images. So we have our own AI lab. We're the largest independent AI lab in Southern California to have scientists work on our current and future companies. And then we, deploying that studio model, have full-time CFO, director of marketing, HR, and so forth to allow our portfolio companies to leverage those if they so want to. And so that's our model as a platform with the fund, the lab, and the studio. And then on the AI medical imaging, Metrics is our company that I'm personally the most invested and involved in at this time.
My name is Ken Baker. I'm a general surgeon by training. I sent many specimens to the pathology lab. I left surgical practice and went into industry, and then started this fund. We invest in early stage medical device diagnostics and healthcare IT. We think it's very important that every company help patients, make doctors' lives easier, and decrease the cost of care. We have to have all three. We'll invest anywhere in the United States. We like experienced management teams who have done it before, so they can navigate the challenges that every company will experience, regardless of what they think they will. And I think everyone up here knows that if you think you need 4 million, you probably need 10. But we'll get there, because nothing ever goes smoothly. And AI in pathology is very interesting to us, because sometimes you can overdiagnose. I think we might get into that a little bit, but we'll wait till we get there.
So I wanted to fuel the discussion with a couple of examples from the work we do at Vision Element. So this is an example of an augmented reality surgery planning platform. And what you can see here is a complete segmentation of the spine. And those are things that we could not achieve at the level of robustness and accuracy that we achieve today 5 or 10 years ago. And really, AI made a difference in what we can achieve in that level. Another example is of 3D out of 2D, including flow analysis of the coronary arteries done in real time during a catheterization procedure. And again, the segmentation here has been done based on AI algorithms. And with those two examples just in mind, we can dive into the discussion of what AI changed in the field. So with the first question, what do you think? Where's the value? Proprietary data or proprietary algorithms? Did it change in recent years from what you see?
Both are very important, but I think with a lot of technology leaders open sourcing AI technology, they're providing the baseline level of AI technology for application level innovation. So for example, Align uses AI technology to segment the teeth and provide 2D to 3D conversion, apply treatment planning, convert it back to 2D imaging, make it photorealistic. We can do all of that in 60 seconds to show a potential patient what the pre and the post treatment would look like. And we apply a lot of off-the-shelf AI algorithm, and we use the Google Stack extensively. So increasingly, and we have the benefit of having our own proprietary data and then being able to innovate on top of that. We develop an in-house appreciation for proprietary data. So I think from our own experience perspective, the algorithm have some of a diminishing margin of return, but the value that we see from the ability to collect proprietary data, having expert annotation, and that becomes increasingly a strategic moat for strategic players who kind of having access to that.
And so you use Google Stock, but you also use users uploaded images, right? So you're lucky enough to have that source for the data?
Like we use some open source like GAN neural network algorithm. So we don't use Google Stock, we have our own. So all the teeth imaging, we have our own. We have more than enough. If you want to see pictures of teeth, come to Align. We have millions and millions and millions of them. But yeah, we find, take the best of what's coming out of fundamental AI research, open source technology, marry it with our proprietary data. We see increasing tremendous value. And it's important for us. We are a medical device company. I think 2 years ago, we hired 3,000 technicians just in order to do treatment planning. We cannot hire enough people to do that, and then we have to rely on automation. and it's kind of going AI and using AI to perform clinical T segmentation, clinical treatment planning. That's imperative for us because our business model requires it.
Let's take it one step further. Naveed, has the balance, team, technology, market changed ever since data became so significant?
Well, I think to a comment Ken made when we had our call last week, prepping, I think team is paramount. It's from the CEO on down. You give me a mediocre technology and a fantastic team, I'll take that any day over a fantastic technology and a mediocre team, because that amazing team will change the technology, will hire the right people, and will raise the capital, will get it to market. I would say that this Apple iPhone may not necessarily have been the best technology, but Steve Jobs was an amazing marketer, right? Not that it's not amazing, but I think you need to check off all the boxes. The data is important. Just one thing to add, an analogy that I like, that they say data is the 21st century's oil. Well, you can be the Saudi Arabia of data. It's useless if you can't get it out of the ground, refine it, and turn it into gas. Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Look at them; they're falling apart. But the AI is the refinery, right? So that's where you could have the smartest data scientists in the world. If they don't have data, it's useless. And so you need to marry the two: have the access to clean, structured data, and have the right talent to then take that data and to train the algorithms to do whatever you're doing, whether it's for teeth or for detecting breast cancer or for pathology. So I did want to make that analogy that I think is critical.
Ken, where do you expect to see the field in 5 years from today?
Well, I think, so, as investors, we see a lot of AI companies in everything you can imagine. And, the challenge for us is which one are you going to bet on? So in 5 years, I think a lot of the ones without the right stuff will fall away, and the dominant ones will prevail, and those ones that prevail should actually do what I said at the beginning, which is help patients, make doctors' lives easier, and decrease the cost of care. Naveed and I talk about breast and lung a lot because that's the majority of the imaging technologies that we see. And if the doctor's not sure if that spot on the chest x-ray is a cancer, and the computer says it looks like a cancer, most likely the radiologist will then say, suspect cancer, suggest biopsy. And it can go the other way as well. The doctor's not sure, the computer says, I don't think it's cancer. They'll say, okay, follow up in 6 months and get another chest x-ray. So I think it'll be incredibly important for decision support and make the doctor's life easier because it helps them push them one way or another when they're unsure. It'll never supplant the doctor. People worried about that, 5-10 years ago. Computer programs don't get sued. Doctors get sued. Doctors make the final decision. Doctors are responsible, and they always will be. But all of these AI components will definitely help them do better work. So if he was going to say, forget about it, the computer strongly thinks it's cancer, and he's going to probably go the other way and say, you should biopsy this. So I think in 5 years we'll settle out. A lot of these startups, many will go away. The ones that truly provide value will stay. I think they'll figure out monetization better instead of having the hospitals and radiology groups paying for it. Some of them might actually carve out a code, which would be super helpful as well. And I think also AI is just going to apply to more. Like in pathology, for example, since this talk has this in the title, to me that means you send a specimen to the pathologist, and traditionally they would cut it 5 times and look at it under a microscope. Well, sometimes in that situation you miss the cancer because it's in the slice or whatnot. But then the question comes up, did that matter? If you have one cancer cell in one lymph node in the axilla for breast cancer, what are you going to do? Well, it could be the only cancer cell, so therefore the lady does not need chemotherapy. But traditionally, that means it's spread. So now she's going to get chemo, which is not a fun thing, that she might not have needed. So I think that type of thing will need to be sorted out as well. If you have better detection due to AI, is that going to force you doing treatments that you shouldn't have done, that you did not need to do? I don't have an answer to that, but that will, I think, get farther along.
Do you find that the 21st Century Cures Act changed the field as expected?
So we're invested in a company that has used that to get on the market. And those of you who don't know it, the short version is if it's software and decision support, sort of, you can now get on the market via the 21st Century Cures Act. The problem with that is the payers don't agree. They want to see a clinical trial. They want to see proof because payers don't want to pay. And so you have to prove it to them and then go get reimbursement. So if it's something that you know is self-pay, hospital pay, or is paid some other way, because let's be clear, patients never want to pay for anything, and asking them to pay doesn't work. So they'll still have to run the trial and show, get positive results of that trial to then get the real reimbursement the regular way, because to my knowledge, and please correct me, I don't know of so many companies that have got Blue Cross Blue Shield reimbursement, Aetna and all that, via the 21st Century Cures Act that allowed them to get on the market.
Yeah, I don't know if there are, to my knowledge, but I do think the insurance companies, being like aircraft carriers that are slow to turn, they are seeing the light, and they're seeing how AI and machine learning can be used to save them a lot of money. And I think it will become mandated by not just insurance companies, but by law and legislation in the U.S., where it's malpractice if you do not use a certain technology for pathology, for skin cancer, for breast cancer, for lung. What's really going to get insurance companies to push for that, say we're not giving any reimbursement unless you use these AI technologies, is when they get sued. When a med mal attorney, because the med mal attorneys will only take the breast cancer cases that they know they're going to win. And so if you can use a tool to then say, yep, this one had cancer, we're going to go sue that doctor, that hospital, that imaging center, and they're going to say, why did you use this technology that's readily available to detect that cancer for that patient? And I think that, fear is what's going to drive a lot of the change, and insurance companies will say, this is a no-brainer.
But to add to that and take it a little different direction, it's all about the data. And AI is all about the data as it slides. For example, if you need a lumbar fusion right now, and you go to your spine surgeon and say, here's my MRI, and he says, yeah, it looks like you need a fusion, you can't have your operation. The insurance company is going to say, you need to go to physical therapy and do all these things for 6 months or even a year. And the surgeon can't do anything about it. Why? Because they have data. They know in some of these situations, physical therapy and other things actually will help you quite a bit. You may not need an operation. And any of you have any doubts, you don't want a spine operation unless you really need it. So, right now the data has accumulated enough that the insurance companies know that you need to try physical therapy and other things first. And then some of those patients actually won't need an operation. So we're saying the same thing. Mine is older data, not AI driven, but it's data. Naveed's talking about more data, because if you do have a decision support tool and you didn't use it, and then the patient has a bad outcome, now you have a problem.
This is also where Alliance may provide a very unique industry perspective. The power, so there is the providing treatment, prove the clinical efficacy, going through the healthcare system, payment, so on, insurance, so on. But there's also another aspect about emotional connection with consumers and showing them different options, bring them into the decision-making process that helps using technology to really provide monetization opportunities and a better clinical outcome. The unknown secret is 80% of dental procedures proposed to consumers were never done because consumers decide not to do it. But once you show them how you look like before and after, you get multiple times of adoption conversion benefits. So that's an area where we invest a lot of AI technology, really believing in consumer conversion, help us to facilitate consumer conversion. The seeing is believing, doing in real time, showing them the different options, and showing them what is minimally invasive procedure versus cost versus duration versus level of comfort, and involve them into those decision-making, provide benefit to the clinicians, provide benefit to the consumer, provide benefit to the med device companies like we do.
So Ken said the patients won't pay for anything.
So this is
Aesthetics is
so this is different. This is aesthetics, and so plastic surgeons have a lot of this software already. So that if a woman wants breast augmentation, they can, how big do you want? They can dial it up and show them what they're going to look like. Same thing for nose jobs and lots of things. So plastic surgeons are using a lot of computer imaging to show people what they could look like. And I agree with you that it helps the sell, because, I mean, let's be honest, surgery is scary, and Invisalign is not cheap. And so you want to know what you're going to get, and then it's more convincing to go ahead and do it.
Well, and something to add there is with dermatology, right? There's now increasingly a lot of companies that are using AI, whether it's open source or custom built, and where the person can take a picture of it, send it to their dermatologist. It's a decision support tool, and so there are more and more of those on the surface for skin, for eye. There's one company that can detect early onset of diabetes by taking pictures of the eye and see those early onsets based on the data sets they have. So, but to that point, when it's not reimbursable and it's out of someone's pocket, it's got to have that aesthetic vanity purpose, whether it's skin or teeth, that they'll gladly pay for it.
And to Naveed's point about the eye, I think is important, because the eye actually shows a lot of human pathology a whole lot earlier than the rest of you. And they take pictures of the retina, and they can see early plaques, they can see early changes due to diabetes, and maybe patients will listen and alter their lifestyle, maybe, but they can detect it, very early. And so when you talk about insurance companies in the value chain, and if you're looking at AI technology, that has huge value, because insurance companies can learn a lot about their patients very early on and approve treatments that then will prevent very expensive treatments later. I mean, the cost of blindness is very expensive. You can help, say, hey, you are pre-diabetic and you're ignoring it. You need to do something about it. And, insurance companies have all these ways. They send you texts and emails and try to encourage you to, help your health. And so, that one is very important. And it decreases the cost of care, ultimately, if they find things early and they're treatable early.
Let's talk about regulatory attitude. Let's take Metrics maybe as an example. It does detect breast cancer, right? But does it outperform a human operator?
The short answer is yes. So we did trials where we would bring in junior radiologists and senior radiologists. The senior radiologists did not use Metrics. They just used their experience, their decades of experience, and the junior radiologists did use the technology, and they outperformed the senior radiologist. So that was one test we did. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. It's public white papers and knowledge out there. MD Anderson did a trial where they ran our AI imaging software head-to-head against Hologic's and vastly outperformed Hologic's CAD. So it is critical to show and that's why we got the FDA clearance. In fact, they created a new reimbursement code for a CM triage tool that it's outperforming existing CAD. Because if you ask radiologists right now, do you use CAD? Off the record, they say yes, because I get reimbursement. And a lot of them say they turn it off and they use their own eyes and their own experience. Because they stopped using, because what's happened is a lot of these big companies, the Hologic, GE, Siemens, their business model is not the CAD software. Their business model is sell more machines. So Hologic, for example, makes about $24,000 in profit off each machine. And then all of them, GE, Hologic, they sell service contracts, $300,000 a year to come service the machine, right? And so they make more money off the service. It's not the CAD. However, again, that's where, in our case with Metrics, we're neutral. We're Switzerland. Our CAD can go on any of their machines, so it's a complement to them, whether we partner with them from the beginning, or the hospital, MD Anderson, for example, that chooses to implement our software on their machine.
It's a decision aid, right? On decision making.
Well, it depends. Our CM triage is, it will say out of all these mammograms, these are the ones, you don't need to worry about, or in the US, they still have to look at them and say, give it to your junior radiologist. These are the ones you need to look at now, give it to your most senior. Now, in other countries that are single-payer systems, in Spain, for example, they have a huge backlog. If a woman in Spain wants a mammogram, it takes 6 months in the queue until she gets it. Then it's another 6 months until the radiologist reads it, so she could have cancer for a year. Now, with our product, we can immediately go in there. We're all on the cloud. We can process 10 million mammograms overnight and say, don't worry about these, go get to these patients ASAP, and get rid of that queue overnight, right? So that's the value of the triage tool. Now, we have another one that's not, it works, but it hasn't gotten the FDA clearance yet, it'll get it this year, I'm sure. But that's our CM Assist tool that diagnoses and says cancer detected right here. And so that one is not to market yet.
Do you think that there will be a time where the regulatory has to change and improve decision making by machines?
Yeah, no, I do, and I think it's just the results speak for themselves. And if you went to RSNA a few years ago, AI was kind of this thing on the periphery of the conference. And this year, any of you went, I mean, they had a whole floor just for AI and radiology. And it's no longer, there's a fear, is AI going to replace the radiologist? That's not the case. And Ken touched on it. It's AI technologies are not meant to replace the doctor. It's meant to empower them to do their job better. So the radiologist using AI is going to replace the radiologist that is not. Mm-hmm. We're always going to need that radiologist, the doctor, to be that human at the end of the day. But these tools will empower them to provide better care.
Something that Naveed's first product can do, and I don't know if it's doing it yet, but in third world countries and poor countries, they don't have a doctor. If they got a mammogram, that's lucky. So to use the software to give a possible diagnosis would be great compared to getting nothing. And as the accuracy gets even better, then it's not replacing the doctor, but in those countries it actually is, because there really is no doctor to look at it. So there's a great value for the patient there. Now monetarily for the company and whatnot, who knows if they can afford it or pay even at a reduced fee, but it has the ability to give good care to places that never had good care. And I think that is a very important point for a lot of the AI technologies, because, how many radiation oncologists do they have in Zimbabwe? I don't know. Do they have any? But if you had AI software that could do all the treatment planning, and they actually had a linear accelerator, then they already know what to do, and they just put the patient in the machine, and then software does the rest. And so this patient is getting expert treatment planning without actually the doctor doing it. And so I think there's a lot of potential for AI diagnostics and treatments in these countries that don't have the healthcare systems like we do.
And just one thing to add there, in Mexico, for example, a country of 150, 160 million people, they have under 200 radiologists with the mammography expertise. So breast cancer is a huge problem in Mexico. We actually have 2 Mexico City VCs that invested in the company, and with their help, we formed a Mexican subsidiary to do business there, because it's forget about replacing the doctor. They don't have enough doctors. And so in Mexico, it's not Zimbabwe. It's still very much not first world, second world, and sophisticated country. So in China, right, to double the cancer rates, and the demand is huge, which leads to another conversation around privacy, right? And while there's certain national security implications of China's social credit scoring and how they track everything for privacy, in the healthcare sense, the benefit could be there is no privacy, there is no HIPAA, they have more images to train the algorithms. Now, at some point, there's a diminishing rate of return. If I have 4 million mammograms and someone else has 8 million and their efficacy only improves by 0.02%, is that really a big deal? At some point, no. But it is a competitive advantage if you have more data.
And I saw a company that is confident their AI software is great based on 800 images. Not as complicated as breast, but still, it was interesting because I really pressed them on that. I said, only 800. They had incredible results, especially versus humans, with only 800 images. Now, it's not breast, not lung, it's something else, but it was interesting. And that's a question I would always ask is like, how many samples did you need until you have whatever's acceptable, 98% accuracy, whatever you have to do? Because the number is different. And as Naveed said, I mean, 4 million mammograms is probably actually too many. 8 million sounds ridiculous. Maybe they can get it done for 100,000, meaning a very accurate algorithm and software. But to me, that's always just interesting to see how many they actually need.
But something else I think, Guy, you could appreciate. So there's 12 types of breast cancer, to my knowledge, and 2 or 3 of them are really rare. So we did not have as many images of the rare cancers, and so our scientists created fake cancer. They created synthetic cancer images based off the few they had to train the algorithm. So that's a case where less than 800, right? I mean, it's
That's the way to augment and
exactly.
little data.
So exactly. So that's one approach. So.
When you're creating augmented images, I totally understand the rationale for doing that. Do you get any blowback from regulators or anybody, hey, or peer review scientific, hey guys, that's fake, fake stuff that you're using. This is no good. How does that conversation go?
Well, what they care about is the end result. So if you're doing a clinical trial and you've trained the algorithm and in the trial it detects real cancer and it's a rare cancer, that's what they look at. That's what matters.
So I'm interested, you mentioned 129 companies in RSNA doing AI. As investors, what's your thesis now? I mean, that's a pretty crowded space, right?
Half of them won't be there next year.
But what are you thinking about investing in now yourselves?
Well, our model's different because we look to launch companies from the beginning with a co-founding partner. So like we could launch a company with Invisalign as a new company, right? Or an individual scientist or entrepreneur. So for me, I don't want to say this in a bad way. I don't go to RSNA or to conferences or demo days or pitch days to look at existing companies. I go more to see what partnerships we can form, even with other startups, because the startup has to focus on doing one thing and doing it well, and they might want to do something else, but it'll be 6 months or a year or 2 years. We say, well, don't wait, because that window can close. Let's spin off a joint venture. So that's more of our model. At least with the current fund and the mandate from our investors. But yeah, at RSNA, was a ton of hype. There are a lot of companies that have raised a lot of money and they have fancy websites and fancy investor decks, and they're not doing any AI, they're doing just glorified business intelligence. And so I think we'll see a lot of them kind of go by the wayside as they, you might be able to raise some money to get to a certain point, but at some level, you got to deliver. And when they don't...
Yeah, our prep, we kind of talk about, is it a hammer looking for a nail?
Yeah.
I think the companies who are succeeding in this particular field will be the ones that combine kind of the raw horsepower of AI technology with a very deep understanding of the vertical industry and the use case. That's where the ultimate product market fit will be, and that's where the companies will be successful. Along the road, partnering smartly, finding interesting ways of getting data, getting expert annotation, getting the right partners along the way, that would help. But ultimately, it's about how do you define the use case and find that product market fit.
And that's a great point in solving a real problem.
Solving a real problem.
So to answer your question from our perspective, it's exactly what she said. And when we ask questions, and they clearly don't know what happens in a radiology suite, and they don't know how radiologists think, and they don't know like what a PACS is, and you walk away. And then you look at the team and say, do they have the experience? Do they know, were they like the VP of sales of GE Imaging and has the great team and they have the contacts and they've already, have deep relationships with the hospital systems and radiology groups. I mean, that's what we look for. You might be thinking, well, it's really hard to find that. That's why we don't invest, because we want that. We want the deep vertical. If I have to tell you about healthcare, well, then why I'm not running your company. You should be telling me everything about it. Like when I want to talk about AI and breast and lung, talk to him. He's deep in it. And so, one of the things that, every investor is different. But I can tell you the investment trend these days is less risk. And so when people don't know what they're talking about, they're not going to get the money. And they say it's hard to fundraise. No, it's not. You just don't have a good story. You don't have a good team. You don't know your market. The market's weak. The deal's bad. It's one of those is why you can't raise your money. But people don't like this direct feedback, but that's the truth, because we saw a deal last year, later stage deal. I knew the market well. My partner knows the market really well. We looked at the team and we're like, we're in, like in a week. Usually it takes us, 4 months. But they had everything, and they had everybody, and we actually clawed to get in. Like they're like, no, we have huge value here for you, and they let us in. So just remember that. I mean, that's what we look for. When he says there's 129 companies, I would bet less than 10% could do what they said. And so that's why they don't get investment. And sometimes it's a good idea, but it just can't be done, and people should pursue it.
What data sources does the early stage entrepreneur have access to?
That's a good question. That's a good one. I think Chris.
We have limited, I can tell you what we observe from our perspective. There are interesting ones that partner with universities. They collect university research clinics that gather a lot of data, and they partner with educational institutions and programs to have access to that data. So that I see some companies take shortcuts that way, and it seems to be very successful for them. Others have, in dental field, dental is a little bit more fragmented, a lot of private practice clinicians. There are very successful ones that very good at getting the KOLs on board, making them investors, help them see the vision. So they have a coalition of the willing that help them get them starting building some critical mass in terms of data. And then once you have that, and they're also great champions in terms of preaching, evangelizing the solution to other clinicians, and they start building that momentum of adoption, that the snowball starts kind of rolling. So I see those two strategies that can fairly practical and successful.
So in our case, with Curemetrics, we have 3.4 million mammograms, and we've got them from different universities, private medical imaging centers, internationally, as with some international partners, which is good because now you have a heterogeneous set of images, not just from one background or one country or state. In that experience, one thing we decided as a fund was that if we're going to develop other technologies for hospitals or the medical field, we want to have access to data from the very beginning. And so right now, for example, we're in talks of doing a new joint venture 50-50 with a large hospital organization that we went to them and said, you're the expert, you have the data, tell us what you want to predict or forecast or detect. And then we marry the domain expertise, the access to the data with our operational experience of building companies and our scientists to build that version 1 product, and they're the first customer, right? So it's a risk mitigation tool. And then from there, they can, of course, then we take it to the other hospitals. But that's where what was unique there is whether you're an IBM or a small startup, if you go to hospitals and you ask for their data to train the algorithms to build something to sell back to them, that's a little harder to do. Whereas if you go to them and say, let's partner together, this isn't an overnight thing. This is a conversation that took over a year. But the ultimate result is we're going to launch a company at inception with a co-founder that's a hospital that has the data, that has the doctors that will come and work with our scientists as a commitment because they have a vested interest and they'll be the first customer. So what I would encourage you to do if you have a startup or you're thinking of starting something and you need access to data in a regulatory environment, try to find that before you quit your job or you take that plunge, and don't take that plunge without knowing that you in fact do have access to the data. If it's open source, wonderful, but with privacy laws and other things, it's better to have that partner.
Sounds like almost mandatory, right, before we start?
In this space, I would say so. Yeah.
I have nothing to add.
A question then of, RSNA, 129 companies, less than 10% will exist, more than half of them are because they're glorified using Excel or business intelligence. Why are they existing right now? Why did other investors give them money? Is it a hope? Is it a building they become field of dreams type of thing? Or what's the thing behind that?
Basically, even a blind squirrel can find a nut once in a while. They go after their friends, their family. So I'm a board certified surgeon. So I will say this, most doctors are terrible investors. That's a great idea, here's my money. They don't understand the diligence. They don't even know the right questions to ask. They don't understand the management team. I ran into somebody yesterday, I'm going to be really vague, and she has a device, she's got a hammer and she's looking for nails, and she's asking me at this reception while I'm trying to eat my sushi what her nail should be. And I'm like, one, I'm not here to design your company, and I just feel sorry for the investors that put any money in that. So you can always raise a couple $100,000 from your parents and your uncles and people who feel sorry for you or don't have a clue. Because let's be honest, I mean, medical investing is one of the toughest things due to the regulatory burdens and the clinical trials, and everything has to be data driven. And so it is extremely tough. And the fact that, and look, I'm not invested in the Veeds company, so I can say this. They have regulatory approval. Most don't. I mean, that is unique and good. And so this is tough. So there's a lot of companies out there, there's too many suckers who will invest, and they shouldn't be. They should just put it in the S&P. They would have made 28% last year, but they do. And there's not too many people as direct as myself who will tell someone, like, that's a bad idea, you should just stop right now. And I think it's really bad to take people's post-tax dollars and waste it for a bad idea. So that's why there's so many. I mean, it's not just imaging. I mean, I see it in everything.
I can't top that. That was excellent.
That was good.
Just want to ask you a question for perspective of AI and insurance. Like the cars with automatic braking systems will lower your insurance premium, and physicians' decisions based on AI. Do you believe will lower insurance premium eventually by lowering liability on particular decisions in the future?
No. Insurance companies want to make money, then keep raising their rates. So even if care gets better, and even if it costs less, they're not going to do anything about it.
How about malpractice litigations at the court? Because your liability most likely will be reduced if you rely on certain, not by yourself as a physician, certain technology, and it's kind of proving not the fault on all decisions made by the physicians. Then probably will that come?
I hope you're right. I hope that will come about, because
Okay.
medicine's an art, and there's always a few errors once in a while, and they're mostly unintentional. And so I think you're right, that if the computer says it's benign, the doctor thinks it's benign, and says, you come back in a year for your yearly checkup, and it turns out to be a cancer, I don't think anybody should get sued. But the United States gets sued for looking at somebody funny. So, but I hope that comes to be, because when you have everything data-driven and not emotional-driven, then there should be a margin of error. Like if your miss rate is less than 3%, you shouldn't get sued. I agree with you, but of course there's nothing like that right now. Maybe it'll get there in a while.